did like this movie, but they made quite a few mistakes. Billy and Stu's plan worked because it was the original. It was the first one. We didn't know there was two killers. They had it perfectly set up to frame Sydney's dad. It was just that easy. They used his phone and all the other shit to trace it back to him. There was no other person that he was connected with. So there was only one person to focus on how to frame. In Scream 2, they just framed Mickey. Because, well, Miss Lewis planned on just framing Mickey. Because he literally admits to, being a psychopath. And, she has a little bit of, I don't really remember the second one, really, anyway, on how she plans on framing him. But she only plans on framing him. And I don't really remember how she did it. But it kind of made sense because she's just focusing on one person. She doesn't have to, throw someone else in that's connected to him because she's just framing him. Scream 3, just one person, so we'll skip it. Scream 4, they fucked up. They decide that Trevor, an ex-boyfriend that's basically just there for plot reasons, is going to be framed along with Charles. Charles is not connected with him at all. They're not friends. They hardly interact. However, Charles does have a friend in this movie, Robbie. But because they decide to brutally murder him outside the house, clearly he's a victim and not a killer. But they don't explain how. They're just like, well, it was Trevor and it was Charles. They weren't like, they don't even give a reasoning. Billy and Stu have this whole thing set up. They have their whole speech ready. They're like, oh, hey, this is the reasoning. And they do something like that in the other ones, too. There's always a speech in these movies where they're like, oh, they just went crazy. Or blah, 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 this. They always have a speech ready. For this one, they're just like, well, it's Trevor and Charles. What's the connection? What's the motivation? That was the whole point of what made the first one iconic. So it was just kind of stupid. I did really like Ghostface in this movie, though. Because, all of his scenes on the phone, he just sounded like a badass. Unlike the previous versions, where you would have his moments. But he just, wasn't really that good. Once they were in person, though, it was different. Just on the phone, I love the scenes. It doesn't sound like you're in the hospital, but I can put you in the hospital. Just some of the scenes were really good with Ghostface on the phone. But I did not care for Charles or Jill. They just weren't really that good. And I can't believe Charles fell for that. After all this time, it's always been two killers, besides Scream 3. So they're obviously gonna expect a second killer. They're literally basing it off the first Scream movie, but it's called Stab anyway. So why would he think they're only framing Trevor? He would have to be a literal dumbass. He planned this all out. He's shown to be like the Randy of this version, except, he's a killer and Randy's not. So why would he think that they're only gonna frame Trevor? This dude was dumb. And I did really like Jill's scene where she wasn't just, gonna get a stab here and there. She legit threw herself into a picture frame, put herself through a table, put a knife to her shoulder, and then slammed it against the wall. I mean, it went a little bit overboard. But with how violent Ghostface was in this movie, it does make sense. But yeah, I didn't care for the movie that much. I honestly didn't watch it for 2 weeks. I got 30 minutes in and I was bored as hell. About like 4 minutes later, it got more interesting, so I guess I should have watched for a few more minutes and I would have liked it. But the plot kind of sucks. They don't explain anything. That's kind of the whole point of Scream movies. They get a big speech, they get too cocky. These guys think they know everything. They're cocky, but they don't really explain anything. They just lose to lose. And I also didn't like how much plot armor they gave Sydney. I get she's the main character, and I do really like her. But they literally say she's in the intensive care unit, the ICU, going in and out. And she just happens to be awake when Jill goes to finish the job. And she's able to fight back. And she's able to kill her. Even though they're both injured. Both pretty badly. Though, I did mention a lot of stuff with Jill. She still went super deep into Sydney. And she has stitches in her stomach. And Jill is targeting the stitches. And she is bleeding like a motherfucker. But she's able to kill her in the end. With a little bit of help. But she was still winning the fight for most of it. She shouldn't have even been awake if she's going in and out. Did she just get that lucky that she was awake when Jill came to kill her? Because fucking Dewey. I don't think it's Louis. Anyways, he literally says, hey, she's not awake right now. So I'm assuming he probably just went in there, checked on her, saw she was asleep, left, and went to Jill. Then decided to talk to Jill for a minute or two. Soon as Dewey left, she immediately started taking stuff off. So she was able to, get out of bed. So she wasn't connected to the tubes and stuff. And went straight to Sydney. Yet Sydney's awake now. That's just too much plot armor for me. But I did really like this movie. I liked it better than Scream 3, that's for sure. But Scream 3 did have a unique concept. It was executed pretty poorly. But yeah, that's about it for this reveal.